Ramayana also has several commentaries on it. Just like Bhagavad Gita has thousands, Ramayana also has hundreds of commentaries on it. The gold standard of Ramayana is Valmiki Ramayana, and probably one of the more popular Ramayans in the north is Tulsidas's Ramcharitramanas. And in the south, Ramanujacharya himself was an ardent student of Ramayana. So he learned the lessons of Ramayana sitting at the lotus feet of his guru, Shailapurna. And Ramanujacharya, as you know, one of the greatest Vaisnava acharyas, considered to be the acharya of the Sri Sampradaya. So today's discussion is essentially the teachings of Ramayana by Shailapurna to Ramanujacharya. So right at the beginning, the very first thing that Shailapurna says is accept that Lord Ram is the personality of Godhead. So this is kind of amnaya. This is a self. It's an axiomatic truth, one that cannot be proven by anything or anybody else. But it needs to be accepted if one is to accept Ramayana. The difference between Ram and Ram and Krishna is very minor. Right? In Brahma Samhita it is said, Ramadi Murteshu Kalaniyamena Tishtam Nana Avataram Akarod Bhuvaneshu Kintu Krishna Swayam Sambhavad Parmapumanyu Ishwar Govindamadi Purusham. So Ramadi Murteshu, so Lord Vishnu, other expansions headed by Lord Ram, they are all coming from Krishna. And Lord Ram is considered to be the closest incarnation to Krishna, Parivasta Avatar. So in the Nectar of Devotion, in the discussion on incarnations of Krishna, categories of incarnations of Krishna, so the Pravasta Avatar are closest to Krishna. And there are two personalities in Pravasta Avatar, Lord Ram and Lord Narsimhadev. And of the two, Lord Ram is considered to be even closer. Even in the description of the spiritual world, there's a description of Krishna Loka, and then it is said under Krishna Loka is Vaikuntha. Like Goloka Namne Nichadhamne Hari Tale Chatasya Devi Mahesha Hari Dhameshu Teshu Teshu. So Goloka Namne, right at the top is Golok. Goloka Namne Nichadhamne, where Krishna himself prevails. And then going from downward upwards is Devi Mahesha Hari Dhameshu. Devi is Devi Dham, where we live. Mahesh is the abode of Lord Shiva. Hari is the abode of Lord Ram, Lord Vishnu. And at the apex of the Hari Dham, just below the abode of Krishna is Ayodhya Puri. So Shailapurna, he begins with this foundational understanding that you should understand that Lord Ram is the personality of Godhead. So it is described that, and here I do not know the source of all the pastimes that are described over here, but the fact that they're coming from an authoritative source make them authoritative. So it's said that once Lakshmi Devi was serving Lord Vishnu. And Lord Vishnu noticed that she was a little sad. So he asked her, why are you sad? And she said that I enjoy my service to you, but I'm still not able to enjoy it completely. And Lord Vishnu is surprised. So he says that you get the most opportunity to serve me. You're by my side 24/7. And Lakshmi Devi said, yes, but also by her side 24/7 is Anantashesh. And while we are sitting, he has 1,000 hoods and 1,000 pair of eyes that are constantly from the top looking down upon us without interruption. So Lord Vishnu started laughing and said, don't worry, in one of our future pastimes, you will get an opportunity of uninterrupted association with me. Anant Shesh will also be there with me, but we will have our exclusive association. So even though from a more material perspective, Lord Ram going into the jungle is considered to be like a hardship, austerity. But Sita Devi actually notes in Ramayana that I am happy over here. Because when Lord Ram was the prince to be the king, then whole day he was serving the citizens. Whole night he was protecting the kingdom. She said, I got no time to spend with you. Now we have so much time for one another. So she actually recognizes that this is a time of great pleasure. So Rajneesh Prabhu is asking that is there a also designated place and position for other incarnations? Yes, there is a fairly elaborate description of the various categories of incarnations and who fits in there. So depending on their potency, depending on their position, some incarnations are Vishnu Tattva, non-different from Krishna, but slightly less powerful. Some incarnations are Jiva Tattva, but Shakti Avesh. So there's actually the devotees have actually made a chart that gives the various incarnations and the positions of them. So, in order to facilitate this pastime, so when Sita Devi married Lord Ram, for 12 years they were in Ayodhya, busy. Lord Ram busy serving his father and the kingdom, Sita Devi busy serving Lord Ram. And then eventually Sita Devi said, what about the promise you made of exclusive privacy? And the Devas were also becoming anxious. What about the promise you made of getting rid of Ravan? So the Lord used mantra. So manthan means one who churns. Right? So the Lord used mantra to churn the mind of Kekai. Kekai on her own was very affectionate towards Ram. She actually had more affection for Ram than Bharat. So when the news came that Lord Ram is going to be coronated, she was very, very happy. She was going around distributing jewels, and she gave a costly pearl necklace to Mantra. Mantra was her maidservant. So Mantra threw that necklace into the ground. And then Keiki said, what's the matter? Why aren't you happy? And Mantra said, don't you realize that now that Ram will be king, Bharat is not going to become king? And Keiki said, yes, that's what everybody wants and that's the best. And then Keiki said, what about the lineage of Bharat? They will always be subservient to the descendants of Ram. So it is said that grandparents are more affectionate towards the grandchildren than parents are towards the child. So what Mantra tried to then incite was grandchildren, that your grandchildren will also be in a subservient position. And KK said, that's very good. They will be nicely taken care of, protected, and they will live in a loving family. Then Manthana, she says, but what about your co-wife? Kaushalya will, so Kaikeyi was the favorite of Dashrath. She was the youngest of the three wives, and she was different in the sense that she was a very strong Kshatrani. She was an expert chariot driver and very accomplished. So she was actually Dashrath's famous favorite. So she says, but so Mantra said, now that Lord Ram will become the king, Kaushalya will become the favorite wife of Dashrath. So your co-wife will now look down upon you. That made Kaikeyi agitated. So the Acharya says that Mantra represents material baggage. Kaikeyi represents intelligence. And Dashrath represents the conditioned soul. So Dashrath was asked by Kaikeyi, who was contaminated by Mantra. So similarly, the jivas whose intelligence has been contaminated with material baggage. What did Dashrath do? He ordered Lord Ram away. So the jiva orders the Lord to leave his abode. Abode of jiva is his heart, his love, his attachment. So the jiva, under the influence of the materially contaminated intelligence, orders the Lord away. When the Lord goes, when Lord Ram went, Sita Devi went. Sita Devi is Lakshmi Devi, the goddess of wealth, the goddess of fortune. When the Lord goes, along with him also goes all good fortune. And who else went? Lakshman. Lakshman is the Adi Guru, the original Guru. So does the Guru. So Vishwanath Chakravarti says that the distress, both a devotee and a materialist may fall under distressing situations. But for a materialist, the cause of distress is very different from that of a devotee. And devotee, this is practicing devotee. Perfected devotees don't fall in or don't experience distress. They may be in a distressful situation, but they don't experience it. But a sadhaka does. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Pad says that ahankar, ashakti and agyan. Ahankar is false ego. Ashakti is strong attachment, material attachment, of course. And third is agyan, which results in moroseness. So all three of these, ahankara, shakti and agyan, can be rectified only by the service to the devotees in the association of devotees. Such an opportunity is extraordinarily rare. And those with meager credits can never attain it. So the analogy is given is that if somebody is fallen into quicksand, then the person cannot pull himself out. The nature of quicksand is such. So somebody who is not in the quicksand can pull him out. But in order for that person to pull him out, there should be a rope that this person who has fallen in the quicksand holds on to. So it is said that the person who is standing on the side is the Vaishnava Sangha. They are waiting to pull out this person who has fallen into Ahankara, Shakti and Agyan. the rope that they give is that of Shraddha or faith. And if the person is able to hold on to the rope, then it's inevitable that the person will be eventually pulled out. This rope is cut by the knife of envy. Specifically, envy towards devotees. So there was this slightly humorous real life example that was being shared, that in Jagannath Puri, where they have the pulling of the cart, so it is very difficult to get hold of the rope to pull the cart. And this particular devotee was saying that once they went to Jagannath Puri and they were frantically trying, and the ropes there are very, very long. Like they are like almost a kilometer long, so that people can hold it. So there was this group of devotees, and they went and they were frantically trying to get hold of a rope to pull a cart. And then finally one Panda says, "Oh, you want a rope to pull the cart? Here, this rope. Take this rope and pull the cart." So all of them were happy. They caught hold of the rope and they were running and running and running. And so they knew the rope was long. But after running for a while, they turned back and they realized the rope was not tied to anything. They were just running with the rope. So the rope needs to be tied to something, right? So when a person is in quicksand, Shraddha in itself will not rescue the person. Sadhu Sang in itself will not rescue the person. But the two together can. The rope needs to be anchored into something. The faith needs to be anchored. And the anchor is Sadhu Sang. The process of anchoring is Shraddha. Now the second topic taught by Shailipurna to Ramanujacharya is that of surrender. So he says there are three characteristics of surrender. One, that the goal is Lord Ram. The process of surrender is devotional service. And facilitating the surrender is giving up everything that is opposing this surrender. So when Lord Ram informed Sita Devi that he was going to the jungle for 14 years, he first tried to scare her. When she said, "I'll come with you," and he said that there are many thorns over there, and they will prick your feet, and there are many dangerous animals. They will kill you. This jungle is a hellish condition. And Sita Devi said that maybe, but being without you is an even greater hellish condition. And Sita Devi said, "If you think that I will be a burden, let me tell you that I will walk in front of you. So the thorns that are there on the ground, they will first prick my feet, and I will remove them so that you don't have to experience their pricks." So the Acharya Sita Devi is saying that I will assist you in removing the thorn of Ravan. That I will walk in front of you, and by my assistance, this thorn in the side of the Devas by the name of Ravan will be removed. So when Lord Ram was still a little reluctant, so Sita Devi was generally very submissive to Lord Ram. This is one of the few times in Ramayana where Sita Devi chastises Lord Ram. And she says that, wives kind of do that when they're upset with their husband, then they go back to old things. So then Sita Devi was upset with Ram, and then she says that, when you came to marry me, now it's been 12 years since that happened. Lord Ram understood that he's in trouble. So he said, yeah, I remember. And she said, Sita Devi says that my father is a very reputable person. And he thought that you were also reputable. So the message that Sita Devi is giving is that the husband should not consider depriving the wife of her service. So she then says that my father raised me to follow the Vedic injunctions. So if you do not allow me to go with you, how will I show myself to my father? And of course, Lord Ram knew that he was completely defeated. So he says, okay, Devi, you can come along with me. Now, Lakshman is angry. And Lord Ram says that, look, Sita Devi is going with me, but if you come, then what about your wife? So the reason that Sita Devi is coming with me is because she has made this point based on scriptures, that the wife should accompany the husband in all circumstances. But if you come with me, then you should think about what will be the situation of Urmila. Urmila is the younger sister of Sita Devi and wife of Lakshman. So Lakshman says, let me go and ask her. So Lakshman goes to the palace of Urmila, and Urmila is one of her talent is that she's an extraordinary painter. So in the preparation for the coronation, she was painting the scene in which Lord Ram is getting coronated, and everybody is congratulating him. And when Lakshman enters, then Urmila immediately turns to him and says, something is not correct. He says, why? She says, I've been trying to make this painting, but the painting doesn't come together. So there is something that is inauspicious that is going to happen. So Lakshman says, you're right. And then he tells her everything, that this is what is there. And then he says, so Lord Ram is going, Sita Devi is going, and I am also going with Lord Ram. And Urmila says, very good. So one of the questions that is asked over here is, why did Urmila Devi say? Did she not know her duty as a wife? Was she like the jungle will be too austere for me? Because she immediately says, please go there. So why do you think she asked Lakshman? And Sita Devi, her sister, she was so upset. Same situation. Both of them are in the same situation. Different reactions. Any thoughts?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. My understanding, Prabhuji, is Sita Devi is a wife of Ram. So, and Lord is the Supreme Person. Rama is a Supreme Personality of Godhead. So she is doing direct devotional service. So her scenario is perfectly valid. When it comes to Urmila Devi, she encourages Lakshman to go and do the devotional service. And if she also comes to forest, then Lakshman need to take care of her. So it will be an obstruction for Lakshman to do full-fledged devotional service. So she encouraged him alone to go, and she will be doing the service by consoling the Ram's mother and other devotees. So that way she is also doing devotional service.
Thank you, Prabhu. Any other thoughts?
Not a thought. The question arises from the statement made by Ravi Prabhu what is direct and indirect devotional service? Is there anything direct and indirect devotional service?
Okay, it's a good question. Piali is saying that she was practical, which she was. It's a good point.
Yeah, she was trying to cover both options, the making sure that both sides were covered well. Like, like her husband is taking care of Ram and Sita Devi in the forest, while she's taking care of things in Ayodhya.
Good point. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I think one more point was like because she wanted to please because her husband, which is Lakshman, and she knew the desire of Lakshman, so she was just supporting the desire of her husband to serve Ram.
Very good. So I think all these points are relevant and correct. So one of the lessons is that obviously Urmila Devi was very attached to Lord Lakshman, but she also understood that it was her duty to take care of the mothers, and she was able to balance that out. Then she also understood that her going to the forest would interfere in Lakshman's service to Lord Ram. And as Laddu Gopal said, that she also understood the heart of Lakshman, that Lakshman wanted to exclusively serve Lord Ram without disturbance. And the position, and here it's not so much wife to husband, it is because these are all devotees serving one another. It's more the mood of devotees. It just, they happen to be husband wife, but it's just the mood of devotees. That Urmila Devi, she represents the mood of a very exalted devotee who is very practical about devotional service, who puts the desires of other devotees above her own desires. And ultimately her desire is that the service to the Lord should be exemplary. There should not be any burden to it. When Srila Prabhupada's disciples were serving him, then there were some disciples, so everybody wanted Prabhupada's association. But there were some devotees who understood that their service was a little different, that they can serve Prabhupada from a distance. Whether it was being out on the streets doing Harinam, whether it was being in the kitchen cooking, or whether it was cleaning. And Prabhupada had that potency that he was able to inspire all of them in that way. So a very few devotees actually got, even when they were physically in the same location as Prabhupada, very few of them got actual extended association with Prabhupada. Most of them were serving, somebody was serving Prabhupada, or they were serving according to the desires of Prabhupada. Now, if you look at the mood of Lakshman, then Lakshman is a Kshatriya. One of the most difficult things for a Kshatriya is to serve other in a menial way. Because Kshatriyas are meant to rule. That's why even in relatively contemporary times, we would see that the kings would divide the kingdoms among their children. Because the Kshatriya needed to rule. Very difficult for them to serve others. Now, of course, the Kshatriyas had soldiers, and the generals had soldiers, but that was a different kind of serving. That is, they're performing their Kshatriya duty. But to serve other person in a menial way, that is a Shudra. The position of a Shudra, very difficult for Kshatriya to do that. Lakshman, he gladly does that. So that is the ultimate nature of a devotee, to serve the Lord in any way. Generally we say that devotees should serve according to their propensity, which is true for sadhakas, practicing devotees. Elevated devotees, they align their propensity to the nature of the service that is needed. Right? Lakshman said, if I need to be a Shudra to serve my Lord, I shall be a Shudra. So when Lord Ram kept insisting that Lakshman should not go, then in that portion of the Ramayana we see that Lakshman, he holds the feet of Lord Ram and then he recites these verses imploring to Sita Devi that I should go. I should be allowed to go. Now again you see this is a difficult thing, that Lakshman is the brother of Lord Ram. He has been with Lord Ram pretty much since the time of birth. Sita Devi came later on as a wife, but he has absolutely no qualms in actually begging Sita Devi that he be allowed to accompany Ram. So Shailipurna says that this is the mood of a devotee, to approach the Lord through his internal potency. Sita Devi is the internal potency of the Lord. This is the mood of a devotee, to approach the Lord through his devotee. Lakshman is holding on to the feet of Lord Ram, but he is praying to Sita Devi. Right? So devotees, they aspire to take shelter of Lord Krishna or Lord Ram, but at the same time they are praying, they are begging for the mercy of the other devotees. So there's a story of, in a temple, there's a deity of Lord Vishnu sitting with Bhudevi and Sri Devi. There's two consorts. And there was this one person who for many, many years was coming in front of the Lord. And he would say that I will improve my ways, I will take to devotional service, I will not do these offenses. And then he would go and do that. And then he would come back again and say, please forgive me, now I will be better, now I will be more serious about my bhakti. And then again he would. And this was going on for many years. So one day came Lord Vishnu, he got disgusted. He says, so many times this person has come, he's completely useless. So Sri Devi, she turned to Lord Vishnu and said that this person may be filled with faults, but of all the personalities that he could have gone to, he has come to you. He has taken shelter of you. That makes him special. He cannot be useless. So Lord Vishnu is not very happy with the answer. He turns to Bhudevi. He says, what do you think? And Bhudevi says, I completely disagree with Sri Devi. So the Lord is happy that he has some support from one of his wives. So he says, how so? So she says that Sri Devi is saying that this man may be filled with faults, but the fact that he has been coming to you means that he could not be having even a single fault. Anybody who comes to you is already perfect. It is just a matter of time. So Lord Vishnu says, there's nothing I can do with the two of you. So he gives benediction to the person. So we see that the mercy to this offender was coming through the agency of Bhudevi and Sri Devi. The mercy to Lakshmana was coming through Sita. The mercy to the aspiring devotees comes through other Vaishnavas and Guru. When Lord Ram was exiled, then the chariot driver of Dashrath, Sumantra, he was given this task of taking them in a chariot and leaving them at the edge of the forest. So when they were leaving, then Sumantra, he said that Lord Dashrath has asked me to ask you if you have any message for him. And Lord Ram gives his message of love and fidelity. And Lakshman is fiery and he says, you tell the king that from today I have no connection with him. He is not my father, he is not my king. Because he has disappointed so many citizens of Ayodhya. He has taken their Lord away from them. He is a offender at the lotus feet of Vaishnavas. So interestingly, he does not get angry at Dashrath for banishing Lord Ram to the forest. He is angry that because of his banishment of Lord Ram, so many citizens of Ayodhya, their hearts are broken. And these are all devotees of Lord Ram. So the Ayodhya Vasis, they were very, very fond of Lord Ram. And Lord Ram was very, very fond of them. To the extent that when his pastimes came to an end and he was ready to go back to the spiritual world, then he asked all the citizens of Ayodhya to accompany him. That when the chariot came, he said, all of you sit on the chariot and we'll go together. So Lakshman said that my father has committed an offense to so many Vaishnavas. So I have no connections with him. From today onwards, my father, my brother, my guru and my friend is only Ram. So Ramanujacharya says that there are 12 kinds of Vaishnava Prad. There is Janma Nirupna, which is offending somebody because of birth. So saying that Prahlad Maharaj was born in a demoniac family, so condemning a devotee because of that, that is Janma Nirupna Aprad. Then Sharir Nirupna, offending somebody because of a particular body. Saying Hanuman is a body of a monkey, Garud is an eagle. So that is Sharira Nirupna. Bhava Nirupna. Bhava Nirupna is that not giving cognizance to the actual spiritual position of a person. So one might consider, there may be a child who's a fixed up devotee. But somebody comes and looks at the child and says, this is just a child, and chastises the child. But right now we are having discussions and don't speak over here. You don't understand. And the child may have realizations. So this is Bhav Nirupna. Then Ashram Nirupna is somebody saying that, well, you're a Grahastha, so inferior ashram. Or sannyas is superior and others are inferior. So making distinction based on ashram. Then avyaya nirupna is criticizing somebody because of bodily deformity. If somebody is bent or somebody is ugly, saying that that's an ugly devotee, or that devotee has an odd looking body. Then alasya nirupna, which is judging a Vaishnava based on habits. So saying, oh, that Vaishnava eats too much. That Vaishnava is always sleeping. Right? So that is Alasya Nirupna. Then Vas Nirupna is having this conception that only the Dham Vasis are worthy of respect. So somebody goes to Vrindavan and says, oh, you're a Vrajvasi, and gives respect. And then somebody goes to Delhi and meets a devotee and says, oh, you're living in Delhi. This is a demoniac city. So not worthy of respect. Then Bandhu Nirupna. Bandhu Nirupna is disrespecting a devotee just because he's a family member. So sometimes close family members, they have past intimacy, and when the family member becomes a devotee, then they say, well, I've seen you at the time when, fill in the blank, when you were running around to see movies, or I know you from the time when you were materialistic. And so So just because your family members, you take the devotion for, you denigrate the personal devotion. Then Prakash Nirupana is only giving respect to those Vaishnavas who have elevated positions and neglecting others. So you see a sannyasi, you give the sannyasi obeisances, and then you see another devotee who's a grahastha, and then you don't give the similar respect to the other devotee. Then Prakar Nirupana is it's an extension of Prakash Nirupana, which is giving respect to those who are connected to elevated personalities. So you have a guru, and then there are some disciples that are closely serving the guru, so you give more respect to them because of the connection with the guru as opposed to others. Then Vartan Nirupana is judging somebody based on their occupation. That somebody may be working in a materially not a very exalted position, and then judging the person. And Dosh Nirupana is finding faults with historical personalities. Like somebody saying that, why did the 5 Pandavas marry one wife? Or somebody saying, why did Krishna have multiple wives? Or why did Arjun act in this way? So this is Dosh Nirupana. So Ramaracharya, he says that one should be careful in avoiding these 12 kinds of offenses. So the difference between Ramayana and Bhagavatam is Bhagavatam is the Kathani of Krishna. Kathani means it's the speech of Krishna. So we are supposed to follow the Kathani, the Katha of Krishna. Ramayana is the Karni. Karni is the actions. So it is the activities of Lord Ram. So whatever Krishna preached, Lord Ram demonstrated. When Lakshman, after getting permission from Urmila, went to Sumitra, his mother, she also immediately gave her blessings. And she actually says that this is what you are created for. That to go to the forest, to serve. So essentially reminding that the purpose of the jiva is to serve the Lord. And then she cautions him. She says that do not be distracted by Ram. So it's very interesting that she says that you were created to serve. And then she says don't be distracted by Ram. So any thoughts about why did she say that? And after that I'll end the discussion. We'll continue next week. It's a contradictory statement. Any idea why she said these both things in practically the same breath?
Can you repeat the question, Prabhu, again? Sorry, this time.
So when Lakshman went to get permission to go to the forest from Sumitra, so first she said, yes, go. And she encourages him, saying that you were created to serve Ram. So go. And then she says, don't be distracted by Ram. I see Ravi Prabhu has his hand raised. Please go ahead, Ravi Prabhu.
Prabhuji, here my understanding is because Lord being kind, He will say that okay, don't worry, go and take rest. I will take care of this, and he will always avoid, making him work more. And she's saying, you need to take care of me, not the other way. So,
Good. Thank you, Prabhu. Any other thoughts?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Then, Prabhu, Lakshman is the younger brother. So, as a younger brother, his duty is to follow the order or instruction from elder brother. So, as Prabhu said, Lord being the elder and so merciful, he may not allow Lakshman to do the service as much as he wants. So that's probably the distraction part that Sumitra Devi is saying, that don't get distracted by that. Your life is there to serve the Supreme Lord. Just an extension to what Ravi said.
I hear you. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. What I think, probably because when Lord Ram or any incarnation, like they will perform some kind of leela, like activities, pastimes, so just not get distracted by his leela, but keep serving without being distracted.
Yeah, I think we're close to the understanding. In the Nectar of Devotion, this pastime is mentioned that so Krishna's charioteer, his name is his Daruka, and once Krishna was lying and Daruka was fanning Krishna with a charmer. So as he is fanning Krishna, he is looking at Krishna, and Krishna is Krishna. He's so beautiful and enchanting that all his senses are completely absorbed in Krishna. His hands begin to tremble, his eyes become filled with tears, and then Daruka chastises himself that my service is to serve Krishna. How come I am enjoying myself over here? So that is what Sumitra is instructing, that Lord Ram, so Ram means Ramyate. Ramyate means that one who gives indescribable pleasure. He said that is Lord Ram. But don't associate with Ram for the purpose of enjoying his association. So don't be distracted with that. Make sure that whatever your service is, you do your service. Right? So don't say that I'm sitting here looking at Lord Ram from morning to evening, and there is nobody who is gathering food for Ram. There's nobody who is taking care of things that might take one away from the personal presence of Lord Ram. So mood of devotees should be that service is the most superior form of associating with the Lord. Prabhupada would say that higher than Vapu is Vani. When you follow my instruction, that is the closest form of association. That today you can sit with me for a few hours, then you will go away. And then he said, ultimately I will leave the planet. So then the Vapu is always limited, but Vani is eternal. As long as my Vani is there, and Vani means following instructions, I am associating with you. So Ramanujacharya is explained this point by his Guru Maharaj, that one should be very attentive in curating the service that is done, in distinguishing what are the services that we are doing for our own pleasure and what are the services that we are doing for the pleasure of the Lord. Now these stipulations are more like aspirations for us, because we always try to find services that resonate with the propensity. In fact, we are encouraged to do so. Our Guru Maharaj will try and find out what works for us and give us services that is along according to our nature. But that's because we are sadhakas. At this point, we are learning to develop the mood of bhakti. But still good to keep the exalted goal in perspective. Ultimately, service is serving on the terms of the recipient, not in the terms of the executor. Okay, so I will stop here, and next week we will continue with some more of this katha between Shailapurna and Ramanujacharya. And if there are any other comments, I see Indulekha and Akshay. Indulekha, please go ahead.
Yeah, Vibhul. I always struggle with this point that very often I hear from, I just heard from you, I hear from senior Vaishnavas, that we should not, that we should try and do our services with the understanding that this is for the pleasure of Krishna. And the thing is that wherever there is love, there is always some emotion, there is always some attachment. If we were to, if we say that we have to only think for, Krishna's pleasure, I don't know, how do I disassociate myself from that little pleasure that I am feeling in making him happy? I find it very, I find that there is some kind of impersonal feel to it, and I get very confused over here that how can I separate myself there, in feeling some, happiness or whatever, feeling some affection or positive feeling, and then to say that, it's, fine, we have to be serving like a servant, have that feeling of the dasya feeling, but even a dasa will feel, unless a dasa is feeling some kind of love and affection and some kind of positive emotion for the person he or she is serving, how does one not feel anything?
It's a good point. So I think the focus of what this particular instruction is that what does one prioritize? Does one prioritize the pleasure of the Lord or one's own pleasure? It's not saying that one is not supposed to feel any pleasure. Right? Then that is impersonalism, as you're saying, right? When we are supposed to not feel anything when we are serving the Lord. But for an exalted devotee, the instruction is that if there is a conflict, then the pleasure of the Lord always takes precedence. In the Shishashtakam, the last verse of the Shishashtakam, which basically talks about the most exalted devotees, right? Aslisha va padratam pinashtu ma darshan ma vatam karotu va yata tatha va vidhata lampatu mat pranatastu saivanapraha. So what is the prayer of Mahaprabhu? That whether you embrace me or you make me broken hearted, you are my worshipable Lord, life after life. So,
right. So there is love in it, and he's not like beating himself. Like Dhanuka is beating himself for feeling teary-eyed and feeling those emotions, and then he's saying, "Oh, I should not be feeling these emotions because I have to be serving, and it is for Krishna's pleasure." So fine, it is for Krishna's pleasure, and I'm sure Krishna is most pleased, but उसमें अपने आप को क्यों इतनी पिटाई करना कि भाई मेरे को कोई इमोशन नहीं होना चाहिए, मुझे कोई फीलिंग नहीं होनी चाहिए? How can one be so whatever emotionless and whatever non-sensitive, not insensitive, but just non-sensitive to this? किसी को भी खुशी होगी सर्व करने में. If I am serving my son, I am serving you. If there is love, then there is naturally a sense of pleasure and खुशी होती अंदर से खुशी होती है. तो उसमें उसको why should I beat myself about it?
So Daruka was not beating himself because he was feeling ecstasy. He was chastising himself because that ecstasy was interfering in his service. Right? So he was fanning the Lord, and because of the Ashtasattvic bhav, because his hands were trembling, etc., he was not able to do his service. So when one's own desire for pleasure interferes with one's service to the Lord, then, at least for exalted devotees, that is not a desirable place to be. For devotees who are practicing devotees, that is a desirable place to be. Right? What is the mantra that is given to people who take to Krishna consciousness? Find something that you like doing, and do it. Right? So the idea is that align your propensity to some form of service and do it. So when you align your propensity, you're obviously going to enjoy doing it.
But then I should not enjoy it.
So it's not a matter of enjoying or not enjoying. It's the matter of giving precedence. Right? So let's assume that you like making jewelry for the deity, and then somebody comes and says that I need to have somebody cook for the deities today. Right? And then you say, sorry, I don't enjoy cooking, so I cannot cook for the deities, but if you have any jewelry to be made, I'll be more than happy to make it. That's an immature devotee. Right? Now, given if everything is the same, then yes, do the service that resonates with your propensity. But rejecting a service because it does not give you personal pleasure, that is immature. Like saying, well, I can't cook, or I'm sorry, this particular service I find very austere, so cannot do it, but something else if you want to do. And there are some devotees who say that I can preach, I can talk and I can preach all day and all night, but don't ask me to get on the altar and do pujari work. Or somebody says I can cook, but don't ask me to clean. So ultimately what they're doing is saying that my personal strive for enjoyment exceeds the service that is demanded of me. Okay. So again, at our stage, it's okay, as long as we don't practice it too blatantly, right? And most of the devotees don't. It's not that somebody says that this is the only one service that I will do, everything else don't even come to me and ask me. As long as we don't follow it too blatantly, it's okay. But the goal is that our mindset should be that whatever service that is needed, that is the service that we should happily execute. Akshay Prabhu, you had a point to make?
I was just enjoying this beautiful Q&A. Very valid question, Prabhu. Thank you so much for that answer. My question was about when you were referring that Bhagavatam is Kathani, what Krishna says, and or Ramayana is Karani, is what the Supreme Personality of Godhead does. So what's the difference between that, the Karani of Prabhu Ram and Karani of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? How do we differentiate between the two essences of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Prabhu?
So, in terms of the essence, there's no difference, because the activities of Lord Ram and the activities of Mahaprabhu were both for the benefit of his devotees. So in terms of the essence, there is no difference, but in terms of the details, there is an ocean of difference. Like Lord Ram, he demonstrated the values based on that time, and we will see some of the values that he demonstrated. But he came in Treta Yuga, and he demonstrated the values for exalted devotees in who are in a environment that is purified. Mahaprabhu came in Kali Yuga, and he demonstrated what needs to be done to make spiritual advancements at the time, right? So how they manifested it was different based on the fact that they came at different points of time, but no difference in the essence. Both of them came for the pleasure of the devotees. Both of them came for as a benediction to the devotees. So no difference between the two.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for. Yes, Ravi Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. I wanted to share my thankfulness. Like many times, when there are no classes, when we are busy with our work life and other things, it's not just feeling like there is a good amount of fact is that like I'm far away in terms of having any devotion to the Lord and the devotional things, but there is always a good amount of thankfulness, like with whatever the how would I say, like, although still I am at the center, but still whatever little devotional service that we are doing, still it gives a sense of satisfaction and joy is a bigger word because it's not like celebration, but a peace of mind and all that. And because why I was relating that is, as I am hearing the class, there is good amount of philosophy, but at the same time, like there is a lot of nectar is there, juice is there in terms of enjoying the mood of devotees who are keeping the Lord at the center rather than themselves. Even the last example that you mentioned about the Ramyate aspect of Lord Ram, so don't get absorbed into it and rather focus on the service in hand. So these things will take us a high, but slowly after some time, I'm sure that we will again back to our own standard. But still, like, the constant and repeated hearing helps, and there is a lot of thankfulness is coming for devotees for everything that they are giving. Specifically to you, I just wanted to extend my thankfulness. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. And yeah, I completely agree with you that Krishna Katha in Vaishnava Sangh has its own sweetness. We can hear lectures on YouTube, etc. But in the association of devotees, the mercy of the devotees also flows, and it adds to the potency. Okay, Laddu Gopal Prabhu.
No problem. Just wanted to thank you for beautiful lecture. Can you please share the Ramanujacharya's 12 offenses to Vaishnava? Because
Sure, I'll put it in the.
I really like those 12 offenses. Yeah.
I'll put it in the WhatsApp group.
Yeah. Another thing, Mataji's question regarding the enjoying the service. Probably maybe not at our level, but maybe at higher advanced devotees. When they to please Krishna, Krishna wants to see them back. So like reciprocation is going on, and as he is trying to please more, Krishna also want to please more to his devotee. So the enjoyment is there. Probably that can become distraction. That was your point, right?
That was not. I mean, it's an interesting point that you bring about the pleasure that that the devotee gets because of Krishna's reciprocation keeps the taste of service that's going on, and that will always be there, whether you're doing a service that's according to your propensity or opposed to your propensity. I think this particular was not really to negate Krishna's reciprocation. I mean, Krishna's reciprocation will always be there. Probably it will be more if you're doing something that is not so much in your nature to do. I think this was more in terms of trying to dissociate your own personal desires for enjoyment. It's like Sumitra telling Lakshman, don't be distracted by Ram. Right? So it's more like your own personal enjoyment. Now, even when Lakshman was serving Ram from a distance, as you're saying, because of that sweet reciprocation, he was obviously feeling a lot of pleasure. But still, he was keeping his own personal aspirations separate. Like, let me not always aspire to be in the presence of Lord Ram. Let me give him time with Sita Devi. Let me serve from afar. So, very similar point, but slightly different ones.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
And also, Prabhuji, just a thought, Prabhuji, in terms of that self-enjoyment, sometimes when we do our chanting, we get a lot of pleasure. So enjoying that pleasure is not the problem, but the moment that focus goes towards that enjoyment rather than hearing, then immediately that enjoyment goes away. And again, we try thinking that will that come, but many times.
And a corollary of that is that, sometimes you chant, you get pleasure, and sometimes you chant, you don't get pleasure, and then you say, I won't chant because I'm not getting pleasure. Right? Sometimes, especially new devotees, they make, not even devotees, new people, they basically have this, that I'm chanting and I only chant when I feel good about it. Otherwise, and they'll come up with a list of reasons. I feel I'm offending the chanting process, or I feel that I'm forcing myself into spirituality. So they say that, that's the diametrical opposite, that I will only chant when I feel happy about it. Otherwise, I will not chant. And, the point that Prabhupada made to Garg Muni said that I don't feel like giving obeisances to you. And Prabhupada said, don't worry, you give me obeisance, then eventually you will feel like giving obeisances to me. Right? And that's what actually happened. Good, very nice and introspective discussion. So we'll pause over here and I'll continue with this next week, and we will chant one. Do we have time to chant? How are we? We'll chant one round of Hare Krishna, and after that we'll do the Narsinghdev prayer. So if you can unmute yourself.